welcome everyone. You're on the ESG track once again, and I have the great pleasure of introducing Diane Schmidt today, who's going to talk to us about creating a data-driven culture at the London Stock Exchange Group. Diane has more than 25 years of experience in data management with a proven record of success in developing governance, operations, technology, analytics, and transformation programs. Prior to joining the London Stock Exchange Group in June of 2018, Diane held a managing director role with the Data Management Architecture Consultancy, a director role at the Department of Treasury Office of Financial Research, and the role of Chief Data Officer at Freddie Mac, which, by the way, is where she was when I met her. So it's nice to see you again, Diane. Also, in her role as Global Director and Head of Data Governance and Business Process, Diane is responsible for the implementation of enterprise data policy and standards framework, business data processes, associated tools to transform and improve the London Stock Exchange Group's functions and behaviors in support of a mature data-driven culture. Diane has a PhD in Computer and Information Sciences with a focus on information quality, a Master's in Information Management, and is an active member of numerous data management industry forums. Can I have a great round of applause for Diane to welcome her?
You guys hear me okay? Perfect. Welcome to the 4:30 session. We're going to talk today about creating a data-driven culture at LSEG, London Stock Exchange Group. I'm a morning person, so this is the afternoon, so you kind of get what you get, but here we are. So let's, we have a short 30 minutes, and I want to keep some time at the end to have a conversation, dialogue, questions, and go from there. You guys see the speaker introduction, talked about that. Just a quick story. I started off my career at a little place called the Naval Criminal Investigative Service. I had this fantasy of becoming a federal agent. I had a top secret clearance, but what happened was I was sidetracked because I started working on databases, and this is many, many years ago. We're talking early 90s. So I thought to myself, okay, this is interesting. That might be something for me. I might enjoy that. So I started taking classes, prepping to get a master's degree. I walked into a class. I was still really, by the way, I'm an introvert, so, but I walked into a class really shy. We did introductions, and someone said, we're hiring for data modelers. I had no idea what that was, but I raised my hand and said, would you hire me? My resume was awful. I had no experience, but they actually hired me. And then within 6 months, I had people banging down my door, doubling my salary, and I thought, okay, I'm good. This is what I'm going to do. So here we now are in 2022. Lots of things to talk about. Lots of things have changed, and I'm excited to really talk to you today about what I've learned, what I continue to learn, and certainly hear about some of your ideas and questions. Quick sort of content review. I'm going to introduce London Stock Exchange Group, talk about what a culture is, what it could be, talk a little bit about what our approach is to a data-driven culture at London Stock Exchange Group, talk a little bit about tools and something called data littering, which I'm sure some of you have heard of. Talk about some key takeaways, and then maybe just we'll close and hopefully just again just do some Q&A and have some discussion. Let's see. Brief introduction to London Stock Exchange Group. Usually when I tell people I work for London Stock Exchange Group or LSEG, I get a wow, and then I get what? Because people don't really know a lot of times what it is, who they are, what they do. I mean, essentially, and just for sort of your information, London Stock Exchange Group has been around for over 300 years in some form or fashion. So I think some people were talking about other banks a couple days or yesterday having a 150th anniversary. Try 300. It's a long time. The brand is pretty incredible. It is really made up of a number of 3 core divisions. We have data and analytics, which is where we sell data, which is where we also sell information products, a little thing called an index. We have capital markets. That's where our London Stock Exchange is. By the way, that's only 5% of our business. It is in our logo. We're not going to change our logo, but yeah, it is an important, significant part of our business. And then we have something called post-trade, where we have our clearing businesses. We also have something called UnaVista, which is a regulatory platform. And then I sort of mention corporate functions because in our sort of future state organization, we have CDOs at each of the 3 division levels, and then we're actually going to have a 4th managing corporate functions. So just to sort of reiterate, London Stock Exchange Group is about, I would say, I think it's about 25,000 people, over 144 locations. So yes, I work in the United States. Yes, we have a lot of people here. Yes, we also have a lot of people in London and other places as well. So let's see. So let's talk a little bit about drivers. Really, in terms of the tagline, we want to employ our data culture. It really enables us to proactively address some of our, or all of our business needs through really our decision-making capabilities. So we've got this continuous evolving landscape, as we all do, scale and resiliency as we continue to acquire companies. As a matter of fact, a year ago through the pandemic, we bought a little company called Refinitiv. We went from 5,500 people to about 25,000. So we need to be able to scale our ecosystem. We have, for a number of reasons, we have internal management objectives and we have stakeholders and shareholders. So we need to make sure that those objectives are managed and fulfilled. And we also have, like many other people, regulatory compliance in a number of our businesses, actually almost our businesses. So what we want to do is really use our cultural abilities and cultural landscape to really enable and address these drivers. What does it mean to be data-driven? If you Google data-driven, the term, there's about 200 million hits. So data-driven means different things to different people. So there's no wrong answer. Essentially, if you really figure out what it means for you, adopt the definition, but using data to inform the business with a culture that acts on data. I kind of like that. And I also like the quote from Deming, without data, you're really just another person with an opinion. So again, it really just depends. There's, again, you can decide on what it means for you. We'll talk about that a little further in the presentation in terms of how we've approached becoming a data-driven cultural environment and how we're looking at those tenets and putting those in place. Let's talk about people first. We have a team of people. We work together to really support and evolve this program and culture. We use people, policy framework. We have a literacy program. We have analytics for our storytelling, and we certainly have tools. At this particular moment, this is what our organization looks like. Now, it continues to evolve as we mature, as we understand our businesses more and more, because this is still a relatively new program, where our partnerships are getting stronger, getting better. Again, we just acquired a big company, so there's this commercial aspect. There's an operational aspect. There's a commercial aspect. So again, we continue to really change our program to make sure we are essentially addressing the needs of our businesses and our functions. Talk a little bit about approach to a data-driven culture. I sort of mentioned the 5 tenets, if you will, and some of the presentations that I actually saw this week kind of mention these things, maybe in different vocabulary or different ways. But for the most part, I won't go through all of these points, but essentially, for people, we have something called a collaboration model. A lot of people call it, your data governance model, where you're setting up councils or what have you. It's your approval mechanism. I thought it was really important to use collaboration, because when you think about what you're trying to do, you're trying to leverage certainly your data, build your data ecosystem, leverage frameworks, leverage rules, all the things in sort of data governance, data management. You need to collaborate. It's not something you can go tell people to do, and especially, I think many of you know, you can't really just point the finger and data governance happens. It takes time. You do have to work together. It's partnership. I think executive sponsorship goes without saying. Create data governance as a service. And essentially, that's really what we're beginning to think about. Data governance as a service, data management as a service. What does that mean? That means that our internal framework, whether or not it's sellable or whether or not it's trusted enough so that we can ensure that our customers, if they want to look at how their data is being managed, we're able to completely expose that framework and ensure that we have all the controls in place with demonstrable evidence. So that's something that we're incredibly focused on right now. Again, this brand is extremely prestigious, and that's something we're really very protective of. Data governance as a term, sometimes I've grown accustomed to using it, but I think for our managers or our senior leadership team, the question always is, what does governance actually mean? So then you have to figure out, okay, how do I explain it? So a lot of times we're actually using different terminology, with different people depending on the audience, and we're adjusting, and that's okay to do. The one thing I also wanted to mention before I don't forget here is business development in data governance and in data management. So something I've really come up with is this business development approach, and it's really all about finding those use cases and finding those partnerships where you can work together, not from left to right, but right to left, and figure out what that question is, what that query is that you want answered, and work it through that way. Instead of the top-down, big program, we do have certainly a lot of a foundation in place, but now we're at a point where we want to, again, really go work with, through our business development efforts, with our business stakeholders, looking at, and again, understanding not what problems they're trying to solve, but what queries they're trying to solve. So that's something I just kind of wanted to mention. Policy framework. We are on our second round since I've been there. Policies can be very challenging. They can be academic. They can be not useful. So what we wanted to do, and also, again, since we acquired this very, very large company, we had new stakeholders. We had new requirements. We had new ideas, and essentially wanted to incorporate those. So our second round is just about finished. What we did is we set up a policy with policy statements and a standard that correlates to every policy statement. We have must statements that correlate to controls, so all those things, which are all correlated to our risk taxonomy. So it's a really nice map for our second and third lines. So, and it also, what it does is it begins to set us up to provide that demonstrable evidence. Keep moving here. Let's talk a little bit about our literacy program. So something that we're really taking a step back on is looking at how do we train, how do we instruct, how do we bring sort of up the common denominator, the lowest common denominator, and get that dialogue a little, changed a little differently. Who are you? What are you doing? We've already answered that question. Now, what do you want me to do? So we're moving along, and so we're setting up programs to really. They're self-directed. We have some modules. We have an internal website that's very rich and robust with everything that we do. It's kind of a self-help place. And we're really trying to conduct our training in a simple way. We're trying to use scenarios, we're trying to use simple terminology, and we're actually making it, we're not training everybody, we're training specific people at specific times. So again, it's that sort of building block approach, taking a step back, realizing what works, what doesn't work. Analytics. So when I started, I was a team of one. We've certainly built up the team from one, and what we decided to do with the metrics, when we started adding people, we said we need metrics. Well, we started off with one metric, and then we added 2, and then 3, and then 5, and then 10. So, but where we kind of landed was we had a lot of metrics, almost too many. So now what we're doing is we are looking at metrics that matter, metrics that make sense, metrics that are worth measuring. And something else we're working on too is back to the policy framework. We're looking at our conformance approach, conformance reporting, all those measures. So all of that's incorporated into our dashboard. So it's pretty exciting to see come to life. Tools. Everybody loves tools. I love tools sometimes. I love tools, actually. I think tools are an incredible enabler if you use them the right way. What you don't realize, however, sometimes when you buy tools, you buy licenses, it's not just the tool itself. It's the rollout, it's the program, it's the training, it's the awareness, it's what do I do, it's roles and responsibilities, it's all those things. So, but our view is that, our platform we want to use as a gateway. We want to make sure that specifically, and I'll talk a little bit more, I'm going to actually keep moving quickly because I think it's, a gateway in terms of metadata, managing metadata, ensuring that we have sort of run and change managed, because I think metadata is the one of the most critical things when you're managing a program. Quick view on where we are. Think about disengaged and data-driven. That's kind of where we are. Not bad. We are, I would say, in the next year or so, we should see that needle move pretty quickly. We have senior leadership support. We have a talented team in place. We're acquiring good tools. We have a good mission. We're clear on scope. So we're excited to see these changes happen. We're excited to see what impacts they make to our business mission, to our company, to answering those questions that I talked about. So I'm going to focus on tools for a second because they sort of lead back to this being a data-driven culture in an enterprise. Part of what I think I've heard many people is that the data really needs to be there, it needs to be trusted, it needs to be readily and easily accessible. I mean, I think that's a lot of what we're here for, right? Is accessibility. So a couple of key points here in terms of tools. Part of what we want to do is we want to really make sure that we're using the tools properly, that we get the bang for the buck. Because a lot of times we can buy these tools and they sit, or not, people aren't logging in because we monitor all of that. We want to get the bang for the buck there. I think I mentioned this before, metadata or details about data. I think it's paramount to both running and changing the company. I think it kind of falls into two categories, and in my opinion, that's it. So metadata, and I've been working with metadata for a very, very long time. I think that managing metadata really is sort of one of the keys to success. So part of what we want to do is using a best-in-class platform to really help us catalog, inventory, understand the relationships in our data for lots of reasons, for requirements, for reporting, for decision-making, all those things. Data littering, because what happens, and this is something that I think Dr. John Talbert wrote about, is that if you don't, we don't want to data litter, which, again, I'll talk about in the next slide. What good metadata does is it helps you not to data litter. So again, I'll talk about in the next slide. I think I mentioned the platform opportunities. It's really the gateway for our most important data. One of the things that we're doing is we have a very detailed change management process and life cycle. So we have a seat at the table in the change management process where we actually have a report card. We have that report card for projects and programs that are of architectural significance that have data component. So we provide an assessment. We walk them through our policies and standards and really talk about requirements early on while it's less expensive. Because once it's an asset, once it's in production, when is there going to be an opportunity to sort of weave in and incorporate requirements from a policy framework? Not sure. So again, we have that opportunity. It took a long time for us to convince stakeholders that it was the right thing to do, but I think they can't live without us now. So they can't get rid of us, which is pretty cool. And then we have certainly the other platform opportunity in terms of metadata platform, data governance is we have an emerging set of external resilience requirements that are mandated. So again, regulatory comes in. I jumped on that right away. We jumped on that right. I said, there's an opportunity here sometimes to sort of uplift, to really get moving. Sometimes that's the right thing to do. So a lot of the requirements were the same as our policy framework and said, this is an opportunity. Let's dovetail into this. And now we're beginning to see some serious progress in our program, which is pretty exciting. Data littering, talk about this for just a minute. I'm sure if you go Google it, you talk to Dr. Talbert, we don't want a data litter, which is essentially, if you think about what it is, it's really, I'll use Dr. Talbert's quote, but it's really rendering the data unusable, junk for future applications. So imagine a piece of data with no details, you don't really know anything about it. Is it more useful with the metadata or not? So essentially, for us, it's incredibly important not to litter in our ecosystem. We have enough of it. We're trying to clean up. We don't want to proliferate it. So again, it's a good concept and something we're beginning to talk about more and more. Some key takeaways is that I'll actually jump to the second one first. There's no one definition of data-driven. Like I said, there's so many definitions out there. I think it's your decision and almost obligation, for your company to decide what is best for you. You can create one yourself. And also data culture. When I started thinking about this and sort of started putting down my thoughts, I thought, wow, this is what comes to my mind. There's lots of different things, and there's probably even more, but those are the kind of the 5 things that, in my experience, and certainly in my experience in the company, that is sort of working, helping us evolve, helping us progress, helping us to sort of really see more business impact. So again, different culture is really multiple and different factors, I believe. Talked about data littering, and then culture, as we know, it just requires constant and consistent effort. So every day, waking up, what am I going to do today? What are we going to do today to try to impact, to affect a better culture at this company? So that's kind of what's on my mind pretty much every day. So. Want to just, for the DGO, the LSEG DGO team, if you guys are listening, thank you. You're awesome. I know it's late in London, but I did see a couple people register. You guys are great, fun to work with. So lots of kudos to the team because I'm not alone. Got a lot of talented people helping and helping drive the program. Thank you. It was a very quick, I think, 25 minutes. I'm looking at the clock up there. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me there. You can find me in lots of different places. I think WUVA and other places. WOVA. Okay. But thank you.
We have 5 minutes left, so we can take a question or two. There's one or two on the online, but is there a question in the room? Anybody in the audience? Okay, let me take the question online.
Mark, I did see a question earlier today, and the question was, where are we on the CDO journey? This is where we are on the CDO journey, is that we have a group data leader, and that's who I report to. So our program, and I think we talked about that, is made up of the data program management, enterprise data governance, records management, and data insight and analysis. But we also have the divisions that I talked about. So each of those divisions have a CDO. They're all relatively new. And then we're hiring a fourth CDO to run the business functions. So essentially, it will be a team of CDOs working on behalf of their divisions, working with their leaders, and sort of working with the group data officer to make sure that the business mission is inherited. But again, because the divisions have disparate businesses, there are different business objectives, but it's a place to talk, to align, to leverage, to collaborate. So that is our journey on where we are with CDOs.
Okay, let's see. There's a number of questions here. Let me just dismiss this. I'm going to try to find the most interesting one for you.
How about anybody here? Any questions about the company, about what we're doing? I know it was a very quick 25 minutes. Yes.
Go to the microphone, please.
Yes.
This was the same question online. Can you talk about data stewards in this process? And then who was paying for the data stewards in the business? Like, so does data stewardship, so there's a role called data stewards.
I'm sorry?
So data stewards?
Data stewards,
Yeah,
okay.
so can you talk about who's paying for them? How many do you have, and all of that?
Data stewards, yes. So what we've done is we've actually put together a data stewardship program. So we have training, we have onboarding, we have roles and responsibilities defined. Remember, we sit at the group level. So essentially, we are instructing our businesses, we are helping our businesses. So the data stewards are defined essentially through the definition of important business services and through those sub-processes, and we have those aligned that way. And we are beginning to make a lot of progress there, because what does it mean when you begin to see ownership? You begin to see a lot of progress around the care, the feeding of the actual data. You begin to really, the roles and responsibilities, and they're asking the harder questions now. They're not asking, who are you, what are you doing? They're not even asking, what am I supposed to do? They're like, okay, now I understand all of it. Now I need some help. So that's where, right? So that's where our stewardship program is. Yes?
This will be our last question.
Could you talk a little bit about your data governance platform and the extent to which it was custom, how you put it together?
I can.
Thank you.
Yes, so we have Calibra as our data governance platform right now. We purchased the tool, purchased licenses a number of years ago, and have really, I would say this year is the first year we've begun to sort of see movement. We've begun to see people using it. We've begun to see output. So we've, sometimes, tools don't need to be as complicated as I think we try to make them out to be. So what we've done is we've created a really simple kind of landing page for Calibra. Very, very simple instructions, very, very simple guidance. So what we've done is we've begun to, I think I talked about some of the stewardship and the important business services. We have all those people trained in the tool. We have, not only from a metadata perspective, we're actually using it for data quality and the rules and the documentation. We're not using it for lineage. We're looking at other tools for lineage. But yeah, we're really beginning to see, the beginning of a pretty decent catalog.
All right, well, we're out of time. Diane, thank you very much for the presentation today, and for the
welcome.
audience, thank you for attending.